Welcome to the Past Life Project. I'm Monique, hypnotherapist and regression specialist. Let me bring you into my world where just another day in the office is not your typical desk job. In each episode, we will be delving into the extraordinary realm of past lives through my own therapy practice, client stories and interviews, and conversations with practitioners that are utilizing past lives as a powerful modality for healing. Tune in to find out how people just like you are healing from a range of physical, emotional, and spiritual issues by exploring their previous incarnations. Are you ready to dive into the future of therapy? It's time to turn back time with the Past Life Project. Welcome to the Past Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Monique, hypnotherapist and past life regression specialist. I have a treat for you today. I'm really excited to bring all different sorts of perspectives to this podcast on working with past lives and what it feels like to have a past life regression session. And in the past, I've talked about my clients' experiences, but I've never had a client come on and talk firsthand about their experience. So today I have the lovely Laurence, who is a philosophy teacher. And she's interested in exploring the nature of consciousness, which makes it really interesting to have these sessions together because we don't just go into surface level, we really go into the meaning of life in these sessions. Working together for the past few months, we've explored regression therapy sessions in this life, past lives, and ancestors' lives, as well as a series of surrogate regression sessions for her 6-year-old son. Welcome, Laurence. I am so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Monique. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited too.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited to just have this chance to talk about your experience and what the process is like.
Yeah, I was really enthusiastic right from the beginning. I found you out through your podcast, actually. So it's kind of a full circle moment, I guess, for me. So I found you out through the podcast and I immediately knew I would want to work with you. And I expected it to be transformative, but not to the level that it has been. The sessions in themselves, like with the induction, which is super relaxing, and then the regression, which can be anything from elation, glee to sadness, anger. Really, I was surprised at how effective it was at working with energy, like moving the energy within me. And I also really appreciate the sort of creativity you bring every session with the inductions. I'm always surprised by how you induce and how it ends up linking to somehow to the regression that we'll have eventually. So that's always an interesting moment. But yeah, there's like the experience of the regression itself, which I really appreciate every time. I'm super appreciative of like the hypnotic state and then the insights that come and the energy work that gets done. But afterwards, I need a couple of days to think everything through. Just rearrange almost my worldview from time to time and just accommodate more possibilities of what is consciousness, how are we linked together, what is soul, so many big questions. So I got like a couple of levels of of information to go through every time we work together.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, especially being a philosophy teacher and this being your wheelhouse. This is your realm. Has working together and doing these sessions, has it made you think of things differently, or has it brought new concepts to the table that you just kind of thought, oh, well, that's interesting? Or has it bridged kind of, I don't know, gaps in readings? I'm curious from that perspective with your background in philosophy, how has it affected you?
And I think an important point for me was like finding the proper outlook, like the proper rational outlook to think about those things. Because in philosophy, we tend to be really, really skeptical and rational, and especially maybe in the last, I don't know, last century or so, we tend to reduce things rationally and hold on to like a scientific worldview, which tends to be fairly narrow. So, like, I wanted to be able to entertain all these possibilities and still keep my discernment. So, how to go about that? Like, um, how do you experience it to the fullest and get all the benefits from it and still arrange it somehow rationally in your mind? That was that was a huge thing. So so yeah, you sort of made it easy because you kind of present it as an hypothesis. This is like, we have past lives. This is the hypothesis we're working with, and you haven't been, really dogmatic about it. It's just like, when we explore hypnosis, this is what happens. So we're just roll with it. And so for me, it was finding that sweet spot. There's a specific term in philosophy. We call it um, ontological. What's the word in English? Epoche, whatever. It means like you stay in a rational inquiry without the need to say this is real or this is not real. Like, you just entertain the thing. And I think this has been the best outlook to just get the most out of the experience. Because if I went in with like, I want to be skeptical, I want to prove for myself this is real or not real, or if I went in with the intention of proving or disproving, then I wouldn't have had all these amazing experiences. I just, entertained it to the fullest and went with it. And you remember our first sessions, I tend to dive deep into emotion right away. Emotions tend to be the first thing I connect to, and it can be really, really intense. The ancestral regression we did first, the emotion was overwhelming. And then the first past life regression, which we had, the anger was out of this world overwhelming. So I just needed to sort of abandon myself to the process. And I haven't come to any conclusion, but still working hypothesis about all this, the nature of consciousness, the nature of soul, the nature of our connection, and also the nature of love, just generally, like how we love each other, and how it can transcend lives. With the surrogate regression, we'll get to talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, that's all really very interesting points. And I think just coming with an open mind, and even you talking about the emotions. I have a teacher who introduced me to this world of energetics and kind of exploring, like you said, consciousness and how we receive information. And I remember her saying that the truth is in the emotional reaction. If you're getting information and your physical body is reacting, so you can feel like contractions or lightness, or the emotions are coming up, that's kind of your gauge of I guess the truth of it, or else it would just be flatline. So paying attention to how this physical vessel responds to the information, how does it make you feel, and really trusting that. So trusting, if you're getting an emotional reaction, if your shoulder starts twinging, that's not just a random occurrence. That it's tied into something. Yeah. Yeah.
And my presenting issue, I think we say, right,
Mhm.
was physical or medical at all, but I got to so many healings that I didn't even know I needed, like physical healings. I did not expect it to be so powerful and potent to heal the body. Like, it healed scars, which I never expected to heal. I had this whole throat clearing. You remember that? and eventually even liver clearing with like the subconscious recommended specific herbs. And I had all these symptoms of itchiness that went away as soon as I started to take the herbs that were supportive to the liver. So I didn't even know I needed um, all these physical healings, but it's been a very nice bonus throughout all this.
Yeah, it's really I find it's an introduction to that inner world and tuning into the subconscious, the higher self, whatever you want to kind of label it as, because I believe it's so much more than just this part of your brain that we don't use, that there's something so much more going on at play, but that the body is capable of so much healing, and you can shift things. And it really is amazing when you see it happen before your eyes. It makes you realize that you can go inwards on your own as well too. I feel like it gives you that opportunity to go inwards and realize that you are connected on that level as a human, and kind of give you that confidence of like, hey, I can connect like this outside of sessions too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience, like the regression, and then we tend to connect to the subconscious or whatever it is. But I had never, entertained the idea of guides. But for sure, like the dialogue that occurs after a regression with the subconscious feels like it's a collective or a plural. Like spontaneously, I started referring it to they. They say, and I can sort of get a feel for what they're like, especially since with this surrogate regression for my son, where I connected to his potentially his guides or his higher self. It was a totally different feel, and and almost personality, I would say. Yeah, a bit more flamboyant for my son, and a reflection of who he is too, and a bit more restraint from my guides. But yeah, it's been really interesting.
So tell me what strikes you as one of the more memorable sessions that still kind of really sticks with you, the impact it's made.
The most spectacular one was, I guess, our first past life regression together in one of my past lives, where I regressed to the life of a man. I get to feel it's like around the 700s and in a rural area, like a poor village and everything. And I immediately connected to a feeling of intense, intense, intense anger, because we eventually saw that his village had been pillaged and burned and everyone was gone. And that life didn't end well. He went to work for the church and became an executioner and ended his own life. But what was absolutely spectacular about it was the energy work associated with it. I had swollen hands for almost 4 years. Ever since I had been pregnant with my daughter, my hand swelling from the pregnancy had never gone down, but it went down in a couple of minutes. How much time? I don't know. Like the time is difficult to tell when you're under hypnosis, but maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And it was just, and I could literally feel the energy of anger coming off my hands. And it was such a strong sensation. I describe it like when you push your hands against the jet in a swimming pool, like that water jet. It was that reversed, and it came off my hands. And I remember you said like, "Oh, it might start to gently taper off now," and I and I told you, no, it just keeps on going. And so there was a lot of stored energy there from that past life. And it was such a relief to finally have my hands back, because I had swollen hands for 4 years. And it was spectacular also what came off, like what was revealed, that I could use my hands for healing if I wanted to try this out. And what, like, the gifts that this fairly negative lifetime has brought me, even though it was a heavy regression in terms of emotion, and we went through the death process, which was also fairly intense. Like, the takeaways were so positive, that, like, the sense of forgiveness and grace, uh, which like which he experienced crossing over, they were truly divine. And yeah, and I often, send love to this man. Like, I imagine him going back to the countryside where we should have gone. We should have, you know, instead of going to the city and starting this whole dirty political process, if he'd found another village. And I often imagine him like on the countryside with like a dog and a new flock of sheep and just happy, just sending him like peace and gratitude for the hardship that he's endured. So yeah, I was really grateful for that first regression. I was also really grateful um, to for my subconscious to trust me with that, difficult knowledge of how much evil that past incarnation had done, without showing me precisely everything. I didn't get to see all the horrors, but just, accepting it and sort of integrating it in a sense of forgiveness for humanity. I think that really stayed with me. So that first one was spectacular, and the other ones are all. I mean, I could talk about every single one of them. The second one we did was the Native American life, I believe. And what is interesting is the that lifetime where um, this Native American man, my past incarnation, was in a tribe who had decided to move west to get away from the colonies, was experiencing so much self-doubt about his abilities to transmit the knowledge of the tribe and everything, that it sort of bled through. And this is the session where I felt the most like I was making it up, because I constantly had this bleed through of self-doubt and disbelief. It was really interesting. And when we did the surrogate regression, then we regressed to this same life, but in my son's point of view, which was really affirming for me to, see it from the other side. But it made me realize, yeah, like that almost the personality of these past incarnations can sort of come through in those sessions. And it's interesting to experience so many sides of humanity. I found that fascinating. And so many male incarnation as well. Like, I'm learning a lot about men's psyche by, yeah, tapping back to male incarnations where, current Laurence would never do or think or feel those things in that same way. So it's been interesting for that.
It is really interesting, isn't it? How you can bring that energy forward in this lifetime. And I found clients, like, some will tend towards certain sexes, some will swap like back and forth, they'll be pretty equal, and some will, like, have a favorite way to incarnate. And it's interesting. And then there'll be the ones that, have been a man for hundreds and thousands of years, and this is the life they're a woman, and they're like, whoa, this is
Wow.
this is different. And so there's something about being in a female form that is part of their learning and their
Wow. Yeah.
journey. But it's interesting how you switch sexes and races and countries where you're located, and you're rich and you're poor, and you're the hero and the villain, not to stereotype that we're all just black and white in that way, but like you said in the first one, those can often be the harder sessions because there's a lot of work in victimhood and that kind of victim energy. Uh, and it's one thing to be the victim, but to be the perpetrator, those sessions I find are typically harder to see yourself, I suppose, being capable of those things. It can be harder to digest. And I feel what you were talking about was so beautiful, that you're almost switching the reality of his life, because also at the beginning you talk about past lives and kind of this concept, and even within past lives I wonder too, well, do we really know if it's in the past? What if this is all happening parallel to each other? Does your work now in that session and releasing that energy and healing your physical body now, does that have an impact on that man you were? If consciousness is all tied together and there's all these parallel, what if it's not actually in the past how we think in linear time? Can you feel that man as well too?
Yeah, for that regression, I think what was particularly helpful was um, that I could connect to his immense remorse, like of his life. The reason why he took his life was that it all caught up to him. He wasn't in that low, like he spent his whole life with like this simmering rage inside of him, but he couldn't just keep up the facade that this was holy or appropriate, or he couldn't hide from himself anymore. Like he'd grown this huge beard to hide his face from shame, and the remorse caught up to him. And I think that like really humanized this incarnation for me. It would. I don't think I'm ready for a lifetime where like I experience so many craving evil or wanting to hurt people. That that might be too much still for my ability to accommodate non-duality, let's just say. But yeah, the fact that like he realized what a huge mistake he'd done, and how it could have been different, that sort of humanized him for me. And yeah, like the male side of the psyche was really foreign to me, obviously, but underneath this I could recognize my personality. Like underneath all this I could connect with, yeah, something.
That you could still feel that whatever it is, that like life force that is you.
Yeah, a certain love of outdoors, and yeah, a couple of things like that that felt, really familiar in a sense.
Is that interesting that almost like core of who you are still stays intact and things shift and change around it, but you're still you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that trust that you were talking about too, with your subconscious, with your higher self in these sessions, that it's never going to bring things that you can't handle. And I think that's a very common fear, that people will, what is going in the trauma, the death, everything? I don't want to see details. And you spoke so brilliantly about, well, it's not always exactly what you think it is, and that things get edited out, that it's not just watching a movie, that what's important to release and for you to know, then but extra things that aren't going to be important or that may make things worse for you now are left out, and that your subconscious has a role to protect you and to see you well, and it wants you to be well. It's not going to throw all this unnecessary trauma at you just for the fun of it, right?
Yeah, for instance, the death process, I knew, like I had some anxiety or trepidation, like how will it be to experience death incarnation, like I didn't know. And in our first session together, which was an ancestral regression, I didn't experience the death process. And that first past life regression as this man in the Middle Ages. It was a very intense death, like self-inflicted stabbing, and um, and what a gift in the end! What a gift to experience the death process and the crossing over, and the immense amount of peace that can be felt after you've crossed over. So yeah, um, I did get to experience it in a couple of other lifetimes, some of mine and some of my sons. And every time it's a very peaceful experience in the end. And what a gift to be able to experience that. Like in full, we say like death is the ultimate unknown. The only, like Socrates said, the only rational outlook you can have on death is knowing that you don't know what it's like and what it is and whether you live on or not. But for sure, like these experiences have affirmed for me like the higher probability of like passing on to a peaceful place. Like even if I've apparently executed dozens, if not hundreds of people, and I still crossed over to a very peaceful place. So that's quite a gift to see it. And I guess like if I had heard this podcast, I would have said, yeah, what is it worth? But it's still a very felt experience when you're under hypnosis, and it doesn't feel like you're making it up because I would have been somewhat undecided about the nature of death before. Not to say that it's completely ruled out in my mind, but yeah, I wouldn't have made these things up. I, I wouldn't have imagined I would have been a man in the 700s working as a shadow executioner for the church, basically an assassin. I would never have made those things up. Like that wasn't part of how I saw myself. And then crossing over in immense remorse and experiencing forgiveness and grace. Like I would never have come up with any of those things. It's not, yeah, it's just what spontaneously came up from the subconscious. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating, isn't it? And across the board too. And these are trends that I notice with clients, that colleagues have, that other people that have been doing regression longer than I have and have published books have talked about these commonalities and sessions that span, you know, age, culture, religious beliefs. And all of these people are talking about having these similar end of life and afterlife experiences. So it's kind of, it makes you think about, you're taking a sampling from all these people and people too that, I mean, there are people that come to me that tell me like, I don't really believe in this past life stuff. And they still experience the same thing. So it really makes you wonder if everyone's having these experiences, then, what is.
Yeah, I would say belief is completely optional, but like sort of what I realized is that both ways, belief in the existence and disbelief, they both need to be sort of put in the background. You're not here like if you do this, you're here for the experience. You're not here as an inquisition. That this is real or this is not real. Like if your intention is like disproving or proving, it's not going to work. Like the intention needs to be the experience and the healing that can come and the immense insights and very precious wisdom that arises from the subconscious. Like your point about trusting your subconscious is so important. And what I've seen is that we need to trust the subconscious for the regressions in themselves or the sessions themselves. But it seems to be in control of the whole agenda, the whole program. I don't know if you ever at our fifth session, or like my last past lives, it was a dual past life regression. Um, the subconscious like came out and said, "All right, next time will be surrogate regression for your son." It was just like sort of not consciously, like we had discussed the possibility, and I had told you that I wanted to try it, but the subconscious just straight up decided that this was on the agenda for for next week or 2 weeks later, and we went with it, and we had 5 amazing regressions after that.
Tell me a bit more about that process, because I mean, I find this work to have a certain magic to it as it is, because it allows us to take our thoughts on what the body is capable of, what healing really is, all these things that we've been told, or maybe our societies have imparted on us, and expand the reality of what we are fully capable of. But when we bring surrogate sessions into play, I find there's even more of a magic to it, that we are capable of surrogately healing others. And I will say, it seems to, in my experience, work best for younger children, typically a parent, because they have that connection with their child, both emotionally and energetically. I have clients that have done surrogate sessions for their adult children and have been able to shift some stuff, but not as much as with a child. My theory behind it is, once you're an adult, then a lot of this is kind of on to you to take responsibility and ownership to do your own work and your own journey, that a child doesn't have the ability to do on their own yet. But for me, at least, it's so magical to see this happening, and the child not even knowing that these sessions are going on, and for the parent to see remarkable shifts. So I'd love to hear your perspective on this whole concept of, we can do a session on you for your son, tap into his consciousness. So now it's my higher self and your higher self working together, and his higher self kind of joins the picture, and he sees the effects as, the physical human being he is in day-to-day life after the session. How's that experience been?
I had to trust the process. So connecting with his higher self, his subconscious, I think was made easier because in past life regression that we've had, the second one, the Native American one, he was a key player in that life. We were really connected in that lifetime, and I could recognize his soul. Like I recognized him on a soul level. So when you did the induction, and with the ideomotor response, you asked for permission to connect with his subconscious, I could, feel into like what I was connecting to, and for sure it felt like my son. And I was curious, like what I never, like, I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what we would find. The issues that I wanted to shed light on were one part emotional. Like, he's a 6-year-old boy, but he used to be particularly reactive, prone to really sudden bursts of anger, and had a lot of anxiety around losing. Like, he just lost it when he lost even a game of shoots and ladder. Like, he had a, yeah. And the issue, I also wanted to shed light on his physical condition. He has the severe form of hemophilia, like the severe form of blood clotting deficiency. So he, like, without medication, he would bleed out. He would bleed a lot. And during the ancestral regression, the subconscious indicated that I was in part here to shed light on that whole lineage of hemophilia in my dad's side. Like, we had a regression where there was a lot about my dad and now my son. And what we found out through ideomotor response was that we needed to regress into 5 lives. And we've just completed last week the fifth one, and there were 5 warrior lives, right? It was like what was revealed is that his little soul carries lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of experience as a soldier and a warrior. And the reason behind hemophilia in this lifetime is dual. One, an invitation to look inside and to see how he's bleeding from the inside from all of these experiences. And two, to prevent him from becoming a soldier again in this lifetime, because he needs to conquer peace, not with arms, but inner peace, with inner conquests, shall we say. So it's a very beautiful message. I was really impressed. And I guess the 5 regressions that we've done together have really, really helped with the emotional side of things. And my feeling is that he'll have to do his own work once he's an adult. Like the 5 lives that we saw one in the American Revolutionary War, one in the War of Scottish Independence, trying to think, Native American one as an extraterrestrial soldier in the interplanetary or galactic war. And the last one was a soldier during the peasant revolt in England. So these 5 lives, I think, worked really well to loosen up that reactive energy that he can have, but they're kind of pointing the way for him to eventually have to do his own work as an adult, because you can't have, I don't know how many dozens, if not hundreds of lifetimes of soldier without accumulating some karma. And you need to clear. And that wasn't for me to do. Like the lives we saw were fairly positive in a sense. Like he was really committed to his community and the camaraderie and the cause of freedom. So they were all fairly positive lifetimes, but I'm guessing he'll have to uncover his own. And it's just, we've just earmarked this for the future eventually, if he wants to take that on. But yeah, it was, I don't know if I've answered your question about how it's like to connect. It was magical. It was magical, really, to understand all, like to get to view him from different angles. And he's so young. He's 6 years old. So.
Him as a grown man warrior, right?
Yeah. Dying for the cause and fighting for the cause and freedom and everything. I could definitely recognize him every time. There's he has this definite flavor to him of grit and also a great love for humanity and community. And he's very social in this life too. So it was simply magical. And to see session after session, the effect slowly seeping in, how more patient he's been with his little sister and all kinds of little things like that. Like an openness to not always win. Yeah, that was that insight was so precious to me, to understand why he lost it when he lost. And it wasn't because of a desire to win. It was because the feeling of loss connected to feelings of intense losses as a soldier, loss of his men. But that grief would come up anytime he loses, even at Chutes and Ladder or whatever. So yeah, it was such a magical process. And I've written down every single regression, and I tend to give that to him when he's older, and tell him now it's if you want to take this on, you can. This is the invitation from your soul to look inward and conquer inner freedom. So yeah, that was beautiful. It was just magical.
I think we need a bit more of that magic where we're in an era where there's so much logic that the pendulum always swings like so drastically. And I feel like it's swung all the way to everything has to be logic and reason, that we've lost touch of the beauty of magic and not being able to, you had said, to prove everything, but to just be open to the experience.
Yeah.
Has that changed your experience of a parent to him, being a parent to him?
Yes. Yes, I had so many insights and keys into his behavior and how to make space also for this very larger than life personality. Like, we are in a very peaceful era and part of the world, especially like the city we're in is very, very peaceful. And yeah, how to integrate that intense warrior energy. Like uh, one of the things that his subconscious said was Halloween is very important for him and it's his favorite holiday just because like it's very precious for him to see how we can make place for horror and gore and have like a dedicated month for horror. That's very precious for him. And yeah, and I told you about he's only learning to read and write, and he had a bit of a dyslexia, like the letters would switch around. And I used what I know of him, like his very embodied nature and very physical and embodied nature, to teach him like this is your sword hand, this is your shield hand, left and right and left. And this letter you take with your sword hand, and this letter, like the handle seems to be on the shield hand, and it like clicked for him in an hour. Everything sort of fell into place. So these insights of like how embodied he is, it's like so different from my my experience in my own body. Um, that was really, really precious to just see things from the inside and being able to sort of activate certain strengths that he has for his own benefit in a way that is not disruptive or chaotic and just, very pro-social and beneficial for his development.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it, to not only witness your previous incarnations and go into ancestors' energy, but to see your son and his evolution and his consciousness. It really is a gift and makes you, I don't know, makes you think about people and how we are so very individual, how our experiences are very different, or even you had talked about the past life that you experienced for you and that he was also in, and then we flipped it the next session, experienced his perspective. Just even as a human, being able to see two perspectives of the same scenario and bring that into your life now, into the world, into your life, into your daily activities. I think that's really a gift.
Yeah, that was really precious. It's really a gift. Yeah. Because in my regression as a Native American male, I had understood certain things, or I had interpreted things a certain way. I died young and I sort of gave up on life. And I had felt that I was sort of abandoning him, who was in that past life a very, very, very dear friend. And I feared that he felt abandoned. But when I regressed to his perspective, as my friend in that Native American past life, like he could see it coming a mile away, and he had taken steps to try to prevent me from going into a depressive state. And he could see that I was just too much. And there was no recrimination at all from his part. But this is what I had, carried forward from that lifetime. I believe that like I had done him wrong by leaving early, whereas from his perspective, like he knew, like, in a sense, the tribe had almost pushed me to my limit, and he totally understood and had no recriminations. That was very healing. Very, very healing to see that perspective, and how much mutual care there is, and there was, and there will be, in our relationship. So yeah, that's quite a gift.
Beautiful thing, isn't it? Especially when we're so stuck in our own conscious reality and thoughts day to day, to be able to shift perspectives, and it makes you just view people in your lives differently, that your reality doesn't mean that it's reality for everyone else. And that, I mean, what a beautiful story to be able to flip it like that and bring healing for yourself, for the thing that you held so much guilt for wasn't actually the way he thought or felt at all.
Yeah. And you also have a very special gift in all this. Like, my subconscious and my son's subconscious, every single time wants to thank you. They're always showering you with love. You're doing such a good job. And they gave me at one point, I don't know if you remember, they gave me an image of like how deep it runs in you. This a connection to past lives. Like they showed me I literally had the image of like a deep, 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 deep root. And and I was curious because during our sessions we don't talk much, but I was curious to ask you about how you found this out in this lifetime, that this was for you, and how this came about. I think it's fairly recent, you told me.
Yes. Yeah. Just in the last couple of years.
Wow.
Yes.
Feels like you've done it forever, for real.
Thank you. It feels like I've done it forever. Like is something that happens often to a lot of people, where you just have this shift, and what you're doing just doesn't feel like what you're supposed to be doing in the world, and you don't know what that something is yet. That's where I had found myself probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. And then, like a lot of us, that, being in a world where there was lockdowns and all of this stuff happened, triggered a lot of our stuff to come up to the surface. And but I was I was in this space where I knew I didn't want to do as a career what I was doing anymore. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know that hypnotherapy was even a thing. So it's not like you can even pick, like a career aptitude test and say, I want to do that. I didn't even know that was an option. Right. And I found it for myself first, and like you, got drawn into it and was taking a series of energetic and psychic development courses at the time. And in all of the courses, I still remember I was taking one on forensic mediumship, which is really strange for me, because if you know me, I do not like true crime or horror or any of like it. I can't. I don't. I don't have the heart for it. So I found myself in this class with a trusted teacher, and other than trusting her completely, I had no clue why on earth I was taking the course. And while my classmates, they were all tuning into things, like getting details about the vehicle or about the perpetrator, where the victim was last spotted, I was tuning into my classmates' past lives. And
what a trip that must have been. And did you immediately realize this was?
No, I had no idea that was what was happening.
You had like snippets from the Middle Ages.
Yes, exactly that. And thinking, well, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. You can berate yourself of like, I don't know what this is, but this has nothing to do with the class. And our teacher, she just really validated and encouraged me of like, okay, no, keep going with that, right? And so we went with it, and that's where we figured out like, okay, it was the classmates' past lives that I was tapping into. It's it makes you look at too that when we think as humans, no, we're doing this wrong, right? And but actually you are doing it right. You're just doing what you're supposed to be doing. And from then everything just unraveled and ended up doing a lot of sessions for myself. So maybe in future sessions I can talk about my own experiences. And when I talk to clients, I tell them that I understand what you're going through because I've gone through these sessions too. So I know what I'm asking you to do, and I know how hard it is to do. And through that, I feel like it found me. So it's one of those, corny things that it found me, but it truly did. I wasn't seeking it out at all. I knew I wanted more in my career, but I wasn't thinking this was it. And not in a million years did I think I had the capacity to hold space for such immense trauma at the time. It would have really actually me to be able to do that. And it just happened so naturally uh, that it's like you said, it's like second nature. It's like riding a bike, tying your shoelaces, that the words come, it feels like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I never looked back. That was my first leap into trust and opening up to my higher self, to my intuition, and just everything that came into place.
Well, I'm really grateful that you found that, and you are wonderful at it. It's just you're like an artist almost, like so yeah, creative with all that, and very attuned and perceptive in her questions too. Like during regressions, sometimes you just ask exactly the right question to light the whole thing up, and I'm like, how did you come up? How did you?
I feel like that's my team bringing things through and like say this, say that, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's really amazing how there's not the two humans sitting across from each other, but how both of your higher selves are working in conjunction as well with anyone else on, your spiritual team as well. It's really this really amazing collaborative effort. And anyone, if they just came and sat on in a session, it might look actually pretty remarkably boring that there's just someone, laying there with their eyes closed and chatting. But when you're in the energy of it, it really is remarkable how much is going on and the mechanics of it that we don't even realize what's happening. Because I know it's like I know what to do in a session. I know what we're releasing. I know how it, as far as that goes and how we get results from that process, releasing energetically, physically in the body. We do a lot of work. I've expanded now to a lot of paying attention to the physical body and not neglecting that we are humans in a physical body. So we need to focus on that, not just kind of the ethereal, spiritual, energetic. But as far as how it's happening, I don't know. And I feel like perhaps I don't really want to know because that's part of the magic, that there's something happening behind the scenes and we're getting the results. And that's the important part. The how, maybe it's a lesson as humans that we can let go of the mechanics of the how and just there.
Yeah, the active part on our end is maybe breathing
Yes.
and trusting, and it's action. Like you need to, let go. Yeah, and trust. I remember on our first session, I was so excited and so eager. And I was afraid that it would, intervene with the induction because I was just so hyper, like, yeah, do this. And my subconscious very forcefully sort of chimed in and told me, like, you need to concentrate on your breathing. That's your only conscious task, is to slow your breathing down and breathe, and it'll help the idiomotor response to happen. And this is how it came about. But yeah, the contrast sometimes is so strong. Like I'm lying there almost whispering, and what's happening, for instance, in my son's past life was like this incredible action scene. And it's so relaxed and at the same time so energetically charged. It's fantastic to see. And after that I always feel a boost of energy.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and for those listening that don't know what the ideomotor response is, that are thinking, what is this? I explain it as a form of muscle testing where we can bring kind of your subconscious, your awareness into your hands and get kind of movements to yes or no questions that can be helpful, as you were talking about, Laurence, about figuring out, okay, doing like I call it like a mini diagnosis of where this is coming from, or if we need to answer questions that maybe we need to get the conscious thinking mind out of the way. I find with clients, once we work in this altered state of consciousness enough, or clients come to me and they already have a meditation practice. This isn't like a unfamiliar world to them, that we move to not even needing it anymore. It's kind of like, oh, like, I don't know, using a calculator, and then you learn how to kind of trust that process. And then we can just ask you, okay, Laurence, is this true or not? Tune into your body. Tell me, is it true or not? So it's almost like you graduate from needing
Yeah.
confirmation and that validation from your hand to trusting, is this truth or not? And going with that, that very quick instinctive reaction.
The way I describe it, like how it feels to trust your subconscious and what comes up from the subconscious. I've told this to a couple of friends. It's like when you're trying to remember a very specific word and it doesn't come to mind, and then you do like you wash dishes or you do something else, you go for a walk, and then out of a sudden, like this bursts into your consciousness. It feels kind of like that. Like the induction places you in just this state of well-being where you don't need to actively think or not think. It's just you just feel well, and it's sort of um almost like evens out the surface of the subconscious. Like there's no active ripples or anything, and things can sort of come up to the surface, and it's it gets evident for sure. Like for my part, connecting with emotions and very physically experienced emotions was a good segue for me. But now I'm finding in our last sessions, I don't need to connect an intense emotion or intense physical sensation. It can get more subtle, and I can trust that this is what's happening. But in the beginning, I would burst into tears or something. Like I knew, okay, this is active. This is what's happening.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. And we can, talk to the body and acknowledge thanking it for bringing these sensations. But like, okay, can we turn down the volume? Because when the volume is all the way full blast, we can't process the rest. So it's like, okay, we trust that you're doing its thing, but it doesn't have to kind of like all come up to the surface. And it's interesting. I have a lot of clients that continue on after these experiences of kind of opening this door, that they carry on to go further into it. So establishing energetic hygiene practices and being aware of what they're absorbing from other people around them, teaching this to their children and how they notice how it impacts them, going on and taking courses on, psychic development and being able to go into meditation and kind of talking to their team and their subconscious and bringing this information, trusting their body and what they need, even if it's standing in the kitchen of like, okay, hey body, what do we need today, right? Or holding up a bottle of supplements up to you and trusting like, okay, do I need this right now? But listening to that yes or no. So it really goes further than even just the healing of the symptoms that come presented to you in a session, but almost a way of being in the world afterwards, knowing that that's a possibility that maybe we weren't taught, depending on which cultures that you're coming from. Many, they do explore this in everyday life, but in general, North American culture, we don't explore this. And it kind of opens the doors of, oh, you can integrate this in your everyday life too. It doesn't just have to be during the sessions in hypnosis, that you become more aware of subtle energies around you and how you can kind of push and pull them and how they affect your well-being and how to use that to your advantage to live your best, fullest life. Well, I'm curious, is there anything else you wanted to touch on today, Laurence?
Just as a last word, like if you're listening to this and kind of on the fence, I would say just try it out, and try it out with like expectations to be surprised. And I'm guessing like, yeah, there's a knowing that this is for you or not just by listening to a podcast like this. I immediately knew I wanted to try it, and I am so grateful that I followed that intuition, which led me to you. And yeah, it's even wider than we can both express, like how it can impact your life, like the positive impacts that it can have is like creativity. And oh yeah, we didn't mention that, but having some confirmation about your path. Like my subconscious chimed in on my path as a teacher, and I had my doubts. Like I am a teacher by calling. I knew I would teach from the age of maybe 11. I knew I would become a teacher. But I had my doubts about whether I was in the right place. And I had like very specific confirmation of what I am here to teach, and and how to be an effective teacher and what kind of mindset to use when I teach. And I've noticed a difference for sure. So yeah, if like what Monique said about being unsure whether you're on the right path, for sure, hypnosis can help you, like past life regression can help you figure this out. It can be really helpful on a professional level, and not just, relationships, energy, healing, physical healing, but all kinds of things. So it's a very fascinating and diverse process.
Yeah. And there's no negatives to opening up to that inner part. It can be scary because it can be unknown, but there's only benefits to your quality of life, opening up to that inner knowing and following your truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful words.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you, my dear, for being here and for talking to us a little bit about your story. I hope our listeners got some great information and just being immersed from that perspective of what it feels like to be there in that chair with your eyes closed, being that person in the experience. And I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with everyone.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you for the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Past Life Project. For more information how I can help you to access the wisdom of your subconscious mind to support deep healing and transformation, visit my website at moniqueglover.com. If you loved what you just listened to, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until next time.